Parting ways can seem absolutely brutal before you realize those exits are actually fulfilled requests. Heaven heard the quiet pleas for maturity you made when you were completely drained. You aren't imagining things, nor did your capacity to care fall short. The pain you went through wasn't some senseless tragedy. Rather, it was a carefully orchestrated shift, driven by profound, deeply compassionate insight that sees past our immediate feelings. Having someone close turn their back undeniably stung deeply. Still, God was quietly executing a meticulous plan designed specifically to match your ultimate calling. You probably wondered why every blossoming friendship suddenly withered, right when you finally let your guard down and started hoping. Though it stung like abandonment, that grief was actually a divine shield keeping you safe. The Creator never recklessly mishandles your emotions, despite how agonizing the results might seem. Sometimes, tight-knit bonds actually stifle your potential, making you too complacent to pursue necessary evolution. And maintaining those ties would only postpone the profound insight you desperately require. While you mourned a departure, the divine realm celebrated a course correction, since the Almighty constantly weaves fresh miracles, even if they arrive disguised as conclusions. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 19. A profound reality exists that most folks dodge, since it completely upends our standard view of affection. Simply put, not every guest in your story gets a permanent residence. Certain individuals cross your path purely to ignite your bravery, highlight unhealthy reliance, or point out deep scars requiring attention, and they bow out the moment their specific mission concludes. Someone leaving doesn't mean affection failed. Occasionally, caring for someone reaches its natural finish line, setting both individuals free without bitterness or fault. Letting go like this isn't a flaw. It reveals deep, underlying wisdom, forged in the fires of adversity rather than the ease of routine. Remember, being tested isn't a penalty. It is crucial training. The Lord refines and challenges everything He plans to empower. Psalm chapter 66, verse 10. If you constantly face breakups, it usually highlights how you've gradually let human connections define your worth, rather than finding grounding in the Almighty. Facing that truth hurts deeply, yet it brings incredible freedom. You were never designed to let mere mortals, no matter how much you cherish them, become your main source of validation, guidance, or safety. The Father cares for you far too much to let your destiny rest on a fragile, unstable base. Christ was straightforward regarding this exact trimming cycle, explaining that the Father snips back every productive branch so it can yield an even greater harvest. John chapter 15, verse 2. Being cut back is painful, not due to failure, but because a vibrant soul is getting primed for incredible resilience. What you perceived as desertion was frequently just divine guidance cloaked in grief. The Almighty strips away our idols whenever those bonds subtly block our path to holiness or faithful surrender. That lingering void isn't evidence of a cruel theft taking something precious away. Rather, it proves profound change is actively underway. Your lingering heartbreak indicates forward momentum, completely shattering any sense of being stuck. The pain confirms your spirit is expanding, adapting, and building the capacity to carry eternal blessings. What seems like absolute chaos is actually meticulous craftsmanship at work. The Lord never carelessly shreds your story. He thoughtfully revises it, cutting away whatever clashes with your ultimate destiny so your core stays unshakable. Whenever companions vanish and situations turn upside down, human nature immediately screams that we've been discarded. Heaven, however, observes a highly calculated maneuver unfolding. You aren't facing a penalty. You are simply being placed exactly where you need to be. Such exactness feels brutal when we latch onto someone before gaining true insight, letting our emotions surge before wisdom can reveal exactly what the Almighty is shielding us from. The sting multiplies simply because emotional bonds always outpace logical foresight. You poured your faith into them, built a mutual past, and let comfort anchor your heart. Suddenly, Separation shattered that illusion of safety. However, that sudden break doesn't invalidate the bond. It merely proves that connection lacked the structural integrity to support the massive calling on your life. The Almighty orchestrates separation to protect your future, never merely to inflict emotional injury. Mutual harmony requires shared goals, not just warm feelings. For how can two people travel as one without a shared destination? Amos chapter 3, verse 3. Once trajectories split, staying together breeds suffocating tension instead of power. Frequently, holy pruning strips away our blinders before the person actually leaves. You suddenly catch things you previously ignored, spotting tiny concessions that seemed innocent but secretly stunted your potential. The Creator declutters your inner circle, allowing absolute focus to emerge free from conflicting opinions tearing you apart. Whoever walks away simply lacks the lungs for the breathtaking heights you are destined to climb, and grasping that truth brings immense sorrow, since rising higher always requires shedding weight. Yet, that agony does not mean you are broken. It simply proves your mission is evolving. God occasionally uproots specific bonds, not because they were toxic, but because they simply weren't robust enough for your next chapter. Our human spirit naturally fights this reality, as we'd rather stay cozy in the known than endure the messy process of transformation. Even so, the Father prioritizes readiness far above keeping things intact. He uses loneliness to forge incredible wisdom, meekness, and profound reliance on Him, traits an easy life could never produce. That's exactly why this entire ordeal leaves you feeling so incredibly vulnerable. Since you cannot view the master plan yet, this surgical cutting feels like a direct attack. But the Lord's motives are always deeply compassionate. Looking back, you'll notice how this isolation forces you to face who you really are, exposing every place you sought validation from humans instead of your Creator. Hitting that nerve absolutely burns because it leaves you totally exposed. Nevertheless, compassionate discipline always breeds immense resilience. The Almighty guides His children into the wilderness to teach them profound lessons, never to tear them down or shame them. He points back to your past so you clearly see what fed your soul versus what derailed you, urging you to recall every step of the wilderness journey where the Lord humbled and tested you to reveal your true character. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2. You cannot hurry this transformation. Masterful craftsmanship requires patience because the Almighty isn't just shuffling your schedule, He is expanding your actual limits. Isolation wipes the slate clean for true insight, anchors your judgment, and teaches you to step deliberately instead of reacting wildly to your feelings. Trimming the excess from your life makes submitting to His will straightforward and incredibly focused. When the agony spikes, it merely proves the furnace is burning away the dross, not that you are falling apart. Permanent, enduring progress almost never arrives without a significant amount of friction. Correction crushes you initially, since it violently rips away what you cling to. Yet the ultimate goal is healing, never captivity. The Father never steals your happiness. He purifies it to make it bulletproof. Today's agony isn't the end, even though getting disciplined never brings immediate cheers, only sorrow, music. Yet, once the storm passes, it delivers a deeply tranquil harvest of righteous living to anyone willing to endure the training. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11. The grit being forged in your spirit today will perfectly sustain the massive blessings coming your way tomorrow. My friend, forward motion will bring you profound understanding the moment the shock of parting clears, since true vision typically sneaks in right after your screaming emotions finally run out of steam. Certain souls step into your world briefly, simply to shock a sleeping part of your spirit back to life. Grasping that concept completely flips the script on breakups that once wrecked your self-esteem. You finally realize that hanging around forever isn't the only marker of success. A bond can be absolutely real, profoundly impactful, and beautifully affectionate, yet entirely meant to be short-lived. Knowing this doesn't cheapen the memories you made. it actually validates them perfectly. Every single person who wanders into your orbit arrives with a specific divine mandate, completely regardless of whether they realize it themselves. A few show up purely to reflect your hidden trauma, dragging forgotten pain into the light so true recovery can start. Others emerge to spotlight immense power you ignored or bravery you never believed you had. The moment that objective is achieved, their role ends. That isn't viciousness, it's divine organization. Everything has its era, and every event under the sky has its appointed hour. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1. The Almighty runs a clock prioritizing evolution, not comfort. Chapters close, once lessons end, totally ignoring whether your heart is ready. That agonizing friction you experience during a transition usually springs from desperately clutching a dead chapter. Our hearts naturally fight farewells because they treasure the bond, but true maturity knows how to spot the finish line. Deep, authentic care doesn't need decades of physical closeness to prove it was real. You can deeply respect an authentic past without artificially dragging it into the present. Squeezing tightly to a lesson you've already mastered only breeds pointless agony. The Lord will never demand you haul old baggage into your future if it acts as an anchor holding you back. Everything clicks when it dawns on you that the Creator doesn't reuse burnt-out connections once their mission is over. His trajectory is purely forward. He refuses to trap you in an endless loop of yesterday just to stroke your ego. Illumination creeps in slowly, exposing merely the immediate foothold rather than blinding you with the entire roadmap. Exactly like the path of the righteous, resembling the brilliant sunrise that brightens steadily until noon. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 18. Music evolution happens incrementally, each phase building directly on the previous one. Immense liberation springs from knowing that true peace doesn't require rebuilding a shattered bond, but rather figuring out exactly why heaven allowed it to happen initially. The second you crack the code on their purpose, bitterness instantly drops its hold on your spirit. Thankfulness wipes out the chaos, and profound tranquility floods the exact spots where doubt used to scream. Releasing someone transforms into a profound gesture of honor, far from a bitter dismissal. You aren't deleting your history, you're simply shelving it where it belongs, so it stops dictating your destiny. Affection built for eternity adapts. Connections designed for instruction inevitably expire. Both serve a spectacular purpose without shame. The Almighty doesn't judge a bond's worth by its lifespan, but by how profoundly it changed your soul. Certain relationships spark instant progress before naturally fading, letting your journey continue freely. Others stick around to nurture whatever has taken root. True wisdom helps you spot the difference without harboring resentment. Clinging to a chapter past its expiration date usually shatters the very gift it brought. Past frameworks simply cannot handle fresh seasons. The Lord refuses to pour new callings into containers destined to break. Christ made this perfectly clear in Luke chapter 5, verse 37, pointing out that fresh wine always demands brand new skins. Forcing things to stay the same when the Almighty is turning the page only breeds tension, not security. As perspective deepens, guilt fades. You quit evaluating your value based on who stuck around, instead appreciating how each individual helped build your character. How things finish doesn't dictate your story anymore. The harvest does. True tranquility arrives once you realize some folks were never meant for the long haul. Still, nobody crosses your path accidentally. That calmness stems from seeing the real shift. They didn't alter who you are. You evolved past the old dynamic, and progress silently drafted new boundaries. What used to be a two-way street started feeling suffocating, not because anyone acted maliciously, but because your inner world grew. Divine maturity rarely asks for clearance before shuffling your social circle. It just pushes forward, and friendships either adapt or fade away. Once genuine change takes hold, the unspoken rules holding things together quietly expire, replacing lingering confusion with absolute clarity. As your core beliefs shift, so does your trajectory, because moving the same way matters more than sharing a past. You begin noticing forced chats, tighter demands, and heavier compromises. Love didn't die, your paths just diverged. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, they are a brand new creation. The old is gone, everything is fresh. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 17. This fresh start carries serious weight, and outdated dynamics usually shatter trying to hold it. Certain bonds only survive if you stay stuck in the past. As you flourish, the entire dynamic tilts, exposing their need for behaviors you abandoned. Keeping yourself small just to keep others cozy isn't your job. Getting bigger isn't prideful. It is pure submission to whatever the Creator is doing inside your soul. Growing up gives you insight, highlighting when folks expected you to remain the old you instead of honoring who you're becoming. Everything gets clearer when you spot chains masquerading as devotion. Yesterday's demands start feeling like a cage because they fall totally short of your current purpose. Waking up to this reality doesn't demand fights or finger pointing. Maturing naturally shines a spotlight on bad fits. The mismatch becomes glaringly obvious without any screaming or theatrical goodbyes. Inner calm wipes out the urge to justify your journey. Pushback usually comes from folks who notice your rise, realizing what they ran from. Evolving scares those capitalizing on your old boundaries. But their unease isn't your burden. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. True sense means picking spaces, feeding your soul, even if making that call hurts initially. Liberation arrives when you realize evolving isn't treason. You aren't walking out on anyone. You're just answering the summons to grow up. The Maker never meant for your progress to be watered down just to keep things cozy. Destiny needs oxygen, and holding it back kills what heaven wants to multiply. Respecting your progress means honoring the future the Lord set up way before these friendships started. Sure, it hurts to outgrow people, because memories still matter. When that spark dies, give yourself permission to mourn without letting sadness take the wheel. You can honor yesterday while cutting its strings. Maturing doesn't wipe out thankfulness. It gives it a new lens. You pack lessons that made you tough and drop whatever drags its feet. Forward motion requires steps, frequently shaking up what felt permanent. You were running a great race. Who cut in on you, keeping you from obeying the truth? Galatians chapter 5, verse 7. Saying yes to progress kickstarts your engine where being stuck tried to break you. Getting bigger isn't betrayal, it's getting in sync. Deciding to keep evolving carves out room for friendships that actually match the spaces the Lord is moving you into next. Progress happens whether the crowd cheers or boos. Your only job is staying loyal to the path, bringing you peace. Bravery builds when you refuse to slide backward, trusting instead that stretching your wings honors the Creator's blueprint and tees you up for the right people. Listen, friend, you never pointed a finger at them. Your mere vibe did. That truth usually creeps in softly before it blows up. Once restoration anchors deep inside, the whole room's vibe shifts without you saying a word. You might still talk softly, listen well, and walk humbly, but everything feels different because true character packs an undeniable punch. Folks pick up on it way before they can explain it. That vibe really shakes up folks, surviving entirely by dodging hard truths. Getting better builds contrast, not fights. The health blossoming inside you starts shining a spotlight on the broken parts of everyone else, without uttering a single syllable. Illumination never bickers, it just reveals. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John chapter 1 verse 5. When pure vision walks into a room used to hiding, awkwardness naturally pops up, simply because reality refuses to stay buried. Your tranquility becomes a looking glass, and plenty aren't ready for a hard look. Genuine character naturally shakes up fake peace without picking fights. You quit over-talking, playing savior, and shrinking to keep harmony. That silent swagger rattles relationships relying on manipulation. Your sharp focus makes their desperate attempts to stay clueless, super obvious, feeling like an attack. Instead of dealing with what your progress stirs up, some folks walk away because running is easier than reflection. Folks usually run from reflections they can't manipulate. Once your talk matches your walk and your boundaries hold firm, toxic behavior completely loses its grip. The vibe you bring stops bargaining with reality, and that unshakable stance lays bare the shakiness already hanging around. As water reflects the face, so one human heart reflects another. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 19. Your restoration bounces back an image others desperately want to ignore. Brightness forces ownership without throwing shade. You don't have to highlight hypocrisies or flag bad habits. People just wake up to it. However, folks dodging the truth almost always mistake their own guilty conscience for you rejecting them. Rather than dealing with their inner chaos, they pin the blame on your evolution, calling your rock-solid stance judgmental. That reaction screams way more about their private battles than your integrity. You didn't start the fire. You just shined a light on a cracked foundation. Getting healthy doesn't break good connections. It reinforces them. Anything crumbling under truth was held together by duct tape anyway. When folks pull back, it's usually just a defense mechanism, not proof you messed up. They back away to protect the old identity they know best, even if it stunts them. Why look at the speck in your brother's eye while ignoring the plank in your own? Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. Dodging always picks an easy exit over deep soul searching. It's never your job to dim your brightness just to keep the room comfortable. You're meant to stay genuine, rooted, and completely surrendered to the Maker's work inside you. Wholeness calls for harmony, pulling in people prepared for the truth. Anyone who bails is just reacting to demons they aren't ready to fight, not to a mistake you made. The exact thing that wounded you also broke your chains. Even if that liberation rarely knocks politely, when a person walks out leaving a scar, it feels like a robbery. Truthfully, you got your center of gravity back. The Almighty uses goodbyes to break bonds that sneakily overpowered your faith. It isn't a penalty, but a reboot for your inner strength. What tasted like defeat was the exact second you stopped leaning on mortals and leaned back on the Creator. Sometimes, human ties swap places with true belief. You still pray, but your emotional safety net quietly becomes a person instead of the Lord. That lopsidedness doesn't hit out of nowhere. It builds up through routine, coziness, and a silent crutch. When the Almighty lets somebody walk away, He isn't wiping out love. He's rebooting your faith. Cast your heavy load onto the Lord, and He will hold you up. Psalm chapter 55, verse 22. That heavy luggage was never designed for another's shoulders, regardless of the bond. By creating distance, the Creator hands back a crucial piece, the power to stand tall without a prop. Cutting the cord isn't acting icy. It's straight-up spiritual adulthood. You figure out how to care without losing yourself, pouring out without throwing away your radar, and staying welcoming without turning needy. This brand of independence bulletproofs your choices, steered not by the terror of a goodbye, but by God's rock-solid compass. As that grip softens, deep serenity takes root. Your identity locks into place once anchored to the Creator, rather than being propped up by the applause, presence, or validation of the crowd. Such groundedness brings tranquility despite turbulent surroundings. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. Isaiah 26, verse 3. Tranquility doesn't grow from fixing every problem, but rather from anchoring your attention exactly where it belongs. Letting go simultaneously hones your spiritual vision. Clear thinking emerges once feelings stop driving your decisions. You start spotting toxic cycles early, detecting unhealthy shifts instantly, and reacting thoughtfully rather than rushing. The Lord refines our eyesight through surrender, showing us how walking away can be an act of profound faith. Standing strong on your own doesn't diminish affection. It actually cleanses it. Music, true affection, blossoms once reliance fades away, opening doors for thriving relationships founded on shared completeness instead of desperation. Experiencing this liberty bolsters belief in very tangible aspects. Your choices grow resolute, while your personal limits become glaringly obvious. Following divine guidance loses its inner turmoil since the dread of letting others down finally vanishes. It becomes obvious that divine assignments are utterly unique, with the Creator orchestrating every journey purposefully. Nevertheless, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord has assigned to them, just as God has called them. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 17. A loyal walk demands the bravery to drop things that seemed crucial yesterday yet aren't meant for tomorrow. The Almighty isn't hollowing out your existence by severing ties. He is simply clearing the floor. This provides room for a sharper path and far better companions. It creates a haven for undivided reliance. Liberation is born from yielding, never from fighting back. Yielding won't break you down. It anchors your soul. The sting of departure vanishes once resilience steps in, stripping the past of any authority over your decisions, value, or destiny. Understand that the quietness was never a void. It served as a teacher, molding your spirit far better than chaos ever might. As the chatter died down and closed bonds withered, you likely sensed a massive hole, but profound unseen transformations were occurring underground. The Creator wasn't pulling away at all. Instead, He called you into a serene sanctuary to make His voice crystal clear against the static. Isolation transformed into a place of learning rather than a prison, with each solitary second bearing immense purpose instead of abandonment. After solitude wrapped around you, superficial diversions faded away, allowing pure insight to overtake the fog. Deprived of endless human opinions, your spiritual radar became razor sharp. Messy mindsets unraveled themselves not through shifting situations, but simply because your soul finally quieted down to hear. The Almighty never stopped talking, though the world's roar frequently muffled His words. During that hush, His call rang out beautifully. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46 verse 10. Truly understanding Him demanded breathing room, which could only come through distancing yourself. Solitude gently realigned your reliance. Instead of drawing validation from human crowds, your confidence sprang solely from the divine. While that shift brought immense difficulty, it occurred with steadfast certainty. Suffering naturally hones our senses, purifies our vision, and demolishes the false realities that ease usually props up. Being alone exposed the hidden depths of your inner power and showed how much grit had been secretly blossoming inside you. It became abundantly clear that making it through didn't require an endless stream of friends, but rather deeply rooted belief. Whenever the absolute quiet seemed suffocating, the Lord was performing intricate surgery on your soul. He forged your true self, far away from cheering crowds, revealing your authentic character in the dark, while providing profound assurance without any worldly approval. Such deep spiritual forging is utterly impossible in a packed room. It demands stepping away never as a penalty, but as a crucial training ground. Therefore, I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. Hosea chapter 2 verse 14. This desert wasn't an exile, it was sheer closeness. Absolute calm additionally provided the necessary terrain for divine insights to sink in. Eternal facts require patience to sprout, and endless busyness destroys any chance of profound growth. A decelerated existence expands your wisdom, making your next steps incredibly obvious because the frantic rush is gone. Away from the crowd, the Creator doesn't have to fight to be heard. He commands your total focus. The hush transformed fleeting realizations into unshakable beliefs, turning mere ideas into bedrock. Real might wasn't forged by people clapping for you, but by weathering the storm. Being by yourself unearthed bravery you never realized existed within. Stripped of the shield of continuous socializing, your deepest terrors emerged, but so did unyielding trust. Burdens that previously crushed you grew bearable, eventually revealing their divine intent. You figured out how to embrace mysteries without freaking out, and how to delay gratification without falling apart. Such long suffering elevated you past mere feelings, tethering your soul to profound insight rather than knee-jerk responses. Let him sit alone in silence, for the Lord has laid it on him. Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 28. Carrying heavy burdens without speaking expanded your spiritual container in unprecedented ways. Once your vision cleared, the path forward emerged, neither rushed nor manipulated, just rock solid. Seclusion sharpened your spiritual ears, which in turn perfected your submission. Spotting the Creator's instructions became a matter of absolute certainty instead of second guessing, bringing tranquility to spaces formerly ruled by panic. Eradicating the noise opened up pathways for divine harmony, which ultimately magnified your faith. That agonizing sense of isolation actually functioned as the forge where your true self solidified and your divine purpose came into sharp focus. To this day, the harvest from that painful era remains visible. Choices are made with serenity, spiritual vision remains unwavering, and belief operates from a place of deep grounding rather than defense. The hush purposefully molded you, equipping you to handle immense blessings without losing your core essence. Those solitary lessons serve as a massive pillar as your world expands anew, proving that your isolated boot camp was brimming with purpose all along. Once that resilience took root, you could finally let go without tumbling down entirely. Furthermore, not every departed thing was actually stolen from you. Certain connections simply ran their course, finishing their earthly mission without any need for theatrical endings or closure. The void stung deeply, but the divine wasn't being reckless with these removals. Goodbyes showed up purposefully, acting as a gentle strainer rather than a harsh punishment. The Almighty wasn't tearing your world apart. He was merely purifying the elements allowed to journey into your upcoming chapter. Prior to any public promotion, a silent sorting process must take place. The Creator habitually removes the excess before fortifying the soul, weeding out your environment to ensure your destiny remains potent. Malachi, chapter 3, verse 3, exposes purification as an incredibly intentional act, designed to burn away anything that fogs your vision or drains your stamina. Friendships, routines, and hopes, unable to survive your spiritual evolution, were never supposed to enter your promised land anyway. Anything incapable of bearing divine weight will inevitably create massive friction if left unchecked. As specific ties withered away, the path ahead grew far more defined. Subtraction streamlined your vision by silencing the background noise vying for your devotion. Chaos naturally breeds wherever there are too many opinions. But the sorting process brings everything back into alignment. Matthew chapter 3 verse 12 highlights a divine winnowing that saves the precious wheat while tossing the useless chaff. The Lord turned down the volume so his leading would ring out boldly and solidly. Moreover, these exits functioned as a massive shield. The things that walked away actually rescued you from compromising down the road. Certain elements appear innocent until a new level reveals their crushing gravity. Heaven defends your purpose by strictly controlling who gets a front row seat, guaranteeing your inner circle champions your mission instead of derailing it. Psalm 12, verse 6, mirrors the immaculate nature born from the fire, showing that the survivors have been deeply proven, not just randomly kept around. The pruning shears cut away trivialities right before promotion brings heavier duties. The Creator always prunes before he multiplies, knowing that massive influence without crystal clear vision is a recipe for disaster. You weren't bleeding allies. You were achieving true harmony. Music. That painful pruning was a highly tactical move, setting you up to sprint ahead without hauling heavy baggage that might hinder your quick submission to God. The pieces left in the dust were never engineered to survive the atmosphere you're about to step into. Navigating this furnace made the absolute necessities glare like neon. Everything currently standing in your world possesses incredible gravity, worth, and divine intent. We are no longer dealing with casual acquaintances or fleeting safety blankets. These are hand-picked spiritual backups. Heaven safeguarded the elements capable of handling immense stress, surviving expansion, and marching seamlessly toward your upcoming destination. Stripping things back spotlighted what truly mattered, which subsequently locked your forward progress firmly in place. Letting go additionally cleansed your ability to believe. As worldly crutches crumbled, your dependence dug deep into the Almighty instead of human structures. This cleansing fire fortified your spiritual radar, making it incredibly obvious what fits and what derails. Spotless character must always come before a step up, since reaching new heights demands entirely unfragmented honor. The Lord ran your loves, allegiances, and hopes through a sieve to ensure your worship remained entirely pure. To this very second, the things that survived the strain remain calmly by your side, never screaming for the spotlight but providing massive bedrock. These surviving components are matched perfectly to your tomorrow, never your yesterday. They echo the sound of destiny rather than coziness, prioritizing submission over the predictable. Not a single crucial piece was taken away from you. The only things dropped were those guaranteed to shatter under the coming weight. This divine sieve operates long past the heartache, conditioning your spirit to spot the right matches instantly. You've stopped running after exhausting pursuits since the shedding process aged your wisdom perfectly. Your decisions carry incredible weight these days, steered entirely by tranquility instead of frantic panic. Heaven's fire didn't make your universe smaller. It poured concrete into your basement. Each subtraction drastically blew up your potential, clearing the floor for alliances perfectly synchronized with your mission and the clock. Whatever makes it through the flames possesses the supernatural ability to evolve alongside you, shifting seamlessly as you elevate without fighting the new season. The entire ordeal locks down your boldness, cementing the fact that the Creator won't ever hold back what you genuinely need. The Almighty's red pen safeguards your speed, guaranteeing that any new additions to your walk will inject power instead of stress, brilliant light instead of fog, and absolute belief instead of terror. It builds an ironclad reliance on the Lord's schedule, honing both your endurance and your holy anticipation, while leaving your spirit beautifully receptive yet wisely protected. True spiritual fire testing grants you the solid grounding needed to handle heaven's gifts properly, setting a firm foundation for lasting maturity. My friend, apparent conclusions are usually just the silent setup for tomorrow. The Almighty never builds your destiny over unfinished business. The Creator clears the deck so incoming blessings land intact. A shut door isn't a penalty or a roadblock, but a deliberate sweeping out, shielding your soul from dragging heavy baggage into realms meant for pure, unhindered vision. Such transitions can seem strange, but they brim with promise, since the Lord never subtracts without a reason, nor hollows out a space aimlessly. You'll find that divine substitution takes its sweet time, as rushing the process totally wrecks your spiritual radar. He swaps things deliberately, sculpting the vessel before pouring the gold, fully aware that hasty bonds fake real unity while missing the core. Restoration acts not as an obstacle to jump, but as rich soil where genuine faith can finally take root once more. Addressing those hidden scars turns your spirit from defensive to welcoming, shifting from high alert to genuine openness, equipping you to spot a true divine gift over a comfortable old habit. That's exactly when heavenly timing starts hitting completely differently. Heaven-sent relationships never show up wrapped in chaos or dramatic mood swings. They slide right into your world, carrying a quiet certainty that needs zero justification. That tranquility isn't dullness, it's the living proof of Isaiah 61 verse 3, trading burned-out ruins for splendor and replacing crushing grief with absolute gladness. Divine renewal never feels pushed or hurried. It snaps perfectly into position, simply because the maker custom built it for that freshly emptied spot. As you mature, your spiritual eyes sharpen to spot bonds that breathe energy rather than sucking it dry. Good ties build your backbone instead of draining it, bringing sharp focus rather than eating your attention. The Almighty pairs by spiritual resonance, not mere habit, naturally snapping past cycles once total healing blossoms. Proverbs 31 verse 10 wonders who could possibly discover a woman of noble character, noting her worth outshines precious gems completely. This highlights that absolute treasure is scarce, reliable, and never unearthed in a frantic rush. Real worth spots its equal, and true wellness naturally gravitates toward the same. Letting go is vital right now, since new blessings arrive after we yield, never while we fight. Gripping fiercely onto seasons, heaven has already packed up simply postpones the thrill of whatever is heading your way. Relaxing your hands organically widens your horizons, turning a scary, empty hole into a welcoming doorway. The master refiner refuses to plant seeds in heart space, jammed full of yesterday's ghosts. He tills fresh dirt, so confidence sprouts free from rivalry or panic. Inside that prepared state, healing effortlessly draws in even more healing. The hunt for another person to fix what the Creator already stitched up is finally over. From here on out, genuine bonds forge themselves naturally, right where shared destiny and deep tranquility sit side by side. Ruth chapter 2 verse 12 proclaims, "The Almighty will repay your deeds completely," offering a massive bounty from the God of Israel, under whose wings you now hide. Faith builds a refuge, and that sanctuary breeds security, where true bonds blossom naturally. You're finally learning tomorrow's blessings won't demand any tap dancing, evidence, or begging. It instantly recognizes you, because the Creator scheduled the collision long before any pruning started. Emotional real estate transforms into holy ground instead of a vacant lot, and eager anticipation completely replaces gnawing anxiety. You're discovering heaven's clock shields everyone involved, guaranteeing fresh bonds land softly with clear purpose, restfulness, and enduring power forged in recovery instead of frantic lust. Once the Almighty steps back into his role as your bedrock, every other relationship naturally shrinks back to a healthy, normal scale. Former safety nets might seem wobbly right now, which is a massive wake-up call showing humans are designed as traveling buddies, never as load-bearing pillars for your existence. Friendship is a beautiful present, but mortal company was never engineered to act as the concrete slab holding up your house. Crossing those wires usually breeds heartbreak, not due to malicious betrayal from friends, but because we handed them divine-sized backpacks. Through changing chapters, you clearly see the fleeting nature of human company, contrasted beautifully against a creator who anchors you through every single storm. Psalm 118 verse 8 lays it out perfectly. Relying on the Almighty beats putting faith in mere mortals any day. This reality doesn't cheapen our friendships at all. Rather, it simply locks human bonds securely back into their correct lane. Leaning heavily on mortals guarantees a bumpy ride music, simply because nobody stays completely static, constantly present, or forever supportive. The Master never bails, never fades, and never pulls his love. Misplacing your trust is exactly how we manufacture our own hidden misery. It's hard to spot the massive emotional loads we dump on friends until heaven lets those crutches wobble. What stings like a harsh goodbye is typically an open door to restructure your loyalties, exactly as Jeremiah 17 verse 7 so brilliantly explains. Truly prosperous is the one leaning wholly on the Almighty, making the Lord their absolute anchor. Faith tied to the Creator never freaks out when folks pull away, purely because it never drank from the well of human reliability. During painful distance or letdowns, the Father sweetly, yet strongly retakes the steering wheel. Heaven doesn't play tug of war against mortals. It totally realigns your inner compass. Spiritual maturity skyrockets when earthly safety nets vanish, planting desperate reliance right where easy luxury used to hang out. Your social circle isn't being robbed, your spiritual spine is just getting a massive upgrade. True steadiness blossoms when you stop leaning on fragile things and grab the unbreakable one. Your identity locks in beautifully when secured by the maker rather than rented from a social circle. Friends can totally cheer you on and hike alongside you, but they absolutely never sketch your soul's blueprint. Only the divine powers your uniqueness, destiny, and life mission. Hebrews 13 verse 5 screams the fact that he will absolutely never abandon or drop you. That vow isn't just pretty poetry, it's bedrock reality. Once the Lord turns into your absolute mooring, your self-worth stops riding the crazy roller coaster of human attachment. Adjusting those scales completely overhauls your perspective on all future friendships. Mortals enhance your destiny. They don't manufacture it. Friends paint bright strokes on your canvas, but never build the actual frame of your spirit. When the Almighty does the heavy lifting, human bonds finally escape crushing expectations they were never engineered to survive. Affection turns robust. Expectations hit reality, and ties become mutual instead of needy. Trust recalibrates. Once reliance points the right way, you quit clinging and start reading the room spiritually. You drop the terror of abandonment and begin prizing real divine alignment. None of this turns your soul to stone. It just grants it solid armor. Belief sinks deeper roots once you discover the true fountain of power. The master becomes your absolute North Star, your unshakable rock, and your quiet calm when life goes sideways. Inside that shelter, bold assurance silently blooms. Measuring safety by head counts or walkouts is over, simply because your bedrock hasn't budged an inch. The Father's shadow offers endless consistency that flaky human schedules could never match. Recognizing this doesn't turn you into a hermit. It snaps your chains. You're fully liberated to care deeply without sheer panic. You can bond without suffocating people and let them walk without crumbling yourself. Dear one, this current chapter wasn't meant to shatter your world. It was a meticulous sculpting session, entirely steered by fingers infinitely smarter than yours. The chaotic untying of your life was secretly a master plan assembling itself underground. You aren't lingering in a graveyard of goodbyes. You're standing at destiny's front door, trading mental fog for crisp vision and exhausting hustle for a clear map. Your only task now is to stride straight ahead, refusing to hunt down anything that opted to walk away. Marching onward demands no salvage missions, apologies, or mental bargaining. Philippians 3 verses 13 through 14 drops the perfect anchor for this exact era. Ditching what sits in the rearview mirror and stretching toward what's up ahead, I charge right at the finish line. That stance isn't playing make-believe, it's total commitment to whatever the master is building next. You have full permission to let go without replaying yesterday's highlight reel, mostly because tomorrow's glory isn't tied to whoever bailed. Heaven-guided steps carry deep calm, completely void of anxious rushing. Genuine divine matches never scream or speedrun, they just click. Psalm 37 verse 5 pushes this exact mindset. Hand your journey to the Maker, bank entirely on His word, and watch Him execute the blueprint. Real faith grabs the heavy boulder off your back, dropping it on divine shoulders. You're completely off the hook for kicking down barriers, micromanaging results, or justifying your glow-up. Serenity will carry you where grinding anxiety never could. Tomorrow demands rock-solid belief in the Creator's polishing methods, even when that scrubbing stung deeply. Progress usually demands waving the white flag long before dropping the cheat codes. Yet, Isaiah 58 verse 11 drops a massive guarantee. The Almighty will steer you non-stop, filling your spirit during brutal dry spells. Heaven's GPS doesn't suddenly lose signal just because you feel totally confused. The signal actually intensifies. Spiritual food doesn't wait until the puzzle makes sense. It arrives while you take blind steps forward. Incredible liberation unlocks when you bless whoever left instead of boiling with rage. Grudges simply chain your ankle to chapters the Father already permanently locked. Choosing grace catapults you straight into your newly forged destiny. Sending them off warmly doesn't excuse the trauma. It simply nods to the divine lesson. You aren't forced to solve every goodbye's mystery to march onward cleanly. Thankfulness for expired seasons bulldozes room for whatever fuels your ultimate mission next. Staying welcoming yet unattached is totally doable once your self-worth turns bulletproof. You get to greet fresh faces without clinging, accept favors without turning needy, and pour your heart out without the secret terror of completely shattering. Maturing stops feeling like betrayal. It becomes pure submission to the Maker. Zero shame exists in embracing your true design, even if your old crew can't hike that same trail. Solid boldness has now completely evicted all second guessing. Action conquers doubt. Step bravely into your destiny, fully believing that whatever belongs in your future never departed. Every exit simply cleared the path. The enduring things survive, while your incoming blessings will find you completely restored, never broken, never begging, just prepared. As we conclude, please unite with me in earnest supplication. Let us elevate our spirits to the Creator, yielding our emotions, lingering doubts, pain, and ultimate aspirations completely unto His care. Join me in prayer. Almighty Creator, we approach your presence this evening totally unveiled, recognizing your supreme authority, infinite insight, and boundless loyalty. You alone generate all grace, script our ultimate destiny, and foresee the exact journeys our earthly footsteps must take. This evening, we magnify your benevolence, your long-suffering nature, and your flawless schedule. We recognize that while our earthly existence shifts, your character remains an immovable rock. Master, we praise you for fiercely guarding our inner spirits. You bore our weight across deserts of grief, letdowns, and fractured bonds. Music, you cradled our broken spirits as friends abandoned us, during agonizing quietness, and throughout nights where the void appeared infinite. We praise your unseen proximity during dark trials, serving as a sanctuary amidst shattered ties and making our fractured pieces whole. Our souls overflow with thanks for your leading. Master, we appreciate the wisdom hidden within closures, the vision granted by departures, and the deep metamorphosis blossoming in solitary communion with you. You continually prove that mortals are merely fellow travelers, never bedrocks. You reinforce that authentic security flows exclusively from your throne, rather than relying on the fleeting grasp or shadow of humanity. Glory to you for training us to lean upon your might, to root our very selfhood in your scripture, and to embrace your designs past mortal logic. Holy Maker, we entreat you to bind up the gashes inflicted by absent companions, stitch together the hollows throbbing from shattered expectations, quiet the whispers of unbelief, exchanging mental chaos for solid assurance in your affection. Empower us to drop old grudges, hostility, and sorrow, showing us how apparent ruins are actually stepping stones for spiritual maturity. Fortify our spirits to release the past boldly, pardon offenses swiftly, and cherish others without unhealthy reliance. We beg for endurance and spiritual sight during your molding process. Direct our feet toward your righteous path, stripping away any idols, toxic bonds, or chaotic forces, jeopardizing the tranquility you plant within us. Grant us eyes to see the fellowships, doors, and graces ordained for our journey, while giving us the courage to abandon whatever obstructs our divine calling. Keep our spirits receptive to fresh alliances, reviving adventures, and your daily bread, refusing to hoard yesterday's ashes. Sovereign, saturate us with bravery, endurance, and expectation. Support our stance amidst chaos, urge us forward through foggy terrains, and fix our faith upon your grip during prolonged waiting seasons. May all partings, earthly farewells, and hollow spaces metamorphose into rich soil, yielding maturity, pure vision, and heavenly synchronization. Show us that departing things simply carve out territory for your tailored blessings. proving that no destined glory can ever be stolen. We invoke a ruling tranquility over every soul tuning in today. May your spirit pacify our thoughts, balance our feelings, and solidify our choices. Temper our belief to withstand the gales of bereavement and harvest a gladness detached from worldly shifts. Let the Holy Ghost persistently declare our permanent adoption, your ceaseless navigation, and our priceless worth in your eyes. Ultimately, O Lord, we consecrate our future unto your altar. We petition you to harmonize our steps with whatever is righteous, authentic, and everlasting. Shield our inner beings, foster our spiritual maturation, and endlessly instruct us in holy conduct. Make thankfulness, meekness, and reliance spill out of our vessels. May all historical and current trials equip us for your ultimate calling. We praise you for every correction, every farewell, and every grace arriving perfectly on schedule. We bless you as our unwavering North Star, our mooring, and our shepherd. We elevate these petitions completely yielded, filled with thanks and holy anticipation, knowing firmly that your loyalty, nearness, and benevolence endure forever. Amen. Should these words have uplifted your spirit, offered illumination, or revealed the Creator's fingerprint across your timeline, please endorse this video, join our subscriber family, and pass this broadcast to a soul starving for truth. We deeply appreciate your presence in our fellowship. May the Almighty endlessly direct your journey, fortify your innermost being, and manifest every single vow He has spoken over your destiny.